Good afternoon, and this starts our my lectures on this environmental economics book called Environmental Economics and Natural Resource Management by David Anderson. This is for my environmental course, Economics 220, and this is our first chapter. Okay, so here's slide one, and we have chapter one, the big picture. So, environmental economics is all around us. The subject reminds us that we often have to make choices between this thing called the environment and the various things that make our lives more comfortable and convenient. Natural resources and natural resource management both define and provide constraints for how to use the Earth's resources. Now, it's very important to use the goal of efficiency to guide decision making. But a cost-benefit analysis is not often used to truly guide decision making, especially when it comes to the environment. Now, hopefully this will be a review for a lot of you who have taken my course in either macro or microeconomics. And I choose the book called Economics by N. Gregory Mankiw because N. Gregory Mankiw has these main ideas of economics, which are useful in all areas of economics, and not just in markets. And they become very useful in environmental economics. So let's review them a little bit. Number one, and the first main idea is called people face trade-offs. All decisions involve something that you can do and something that you cannot do. And this is very closely followed up by number two, the cost of something is what you give up, or as I should say, give up to get it. Let's see if I can add that in there. Give up to get it. Yes, that's much more like it. So doing something means that you're going to have to give up something else. We call this opportunity cost. Number three, people thinking on the margin. Margin means the next decision, and people, rational people think on the margin. So if you're rational, you're looking at your next decision and you're looking at the costs and benefits of that next decision. Number four, people face incentives. Incentives are rewards or punishment that get people to behave in a certain way. Incentives are used all the time in economics, and you'll see plenty of incentives in this course. Number five, trade makes everyone better off. The idea that if individuals trade with each other, that can maximize a current distribution, current allocation of resources, and people are made better off by doing that. Trade, remember, needs to be voluntary between two parties. Number six, markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. So when people engage in market activity, that notion of exchange between individuals is oftentimes a good way to organize that activity, as opposed to a allocation from a higher power. Finally, governments can sometimes improve economic outcomes if markets do some degree of market failure, and there's a notion of externalities involved there. Now, main idea 7 leads us to this slide right here, and this is slide 3, and the title of this slide says, "Can we trust the free market?" Well, we can trust it up to a point, but there are some caveats. What you don't know can hurt you. This is the idea of the importance of full information. If there's not full information, then you can be hurt by a given transaction. Number two, competition underpins efficiency, so that if there is a few firms or just one firm that tends not to be efficient, If there's more competition, firms are forced to become efficient in their decision making. Number 3, side effects matter. The idea that side effects, aka externalities, are a really big thing. And firms, when they take into consideration the environment, should not take into consideration just private costs, but the cost to society. And finally, free riders can cause the underprovision of public goods. And a public good is something that is available to everybody, and everybody can enjoy the public good at the same time. The picture that you see here is a river, very polluted river flowing from a river in Mumbai, India, into the sea. And people are taking advantage of that common resource. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, and so the resource itself can be indeed harmed. Okay, now we're on to our next slide here, and this is slide 4. Another big idea is that of doing something about all the stuff we generate through production and consumption. And you see 2 trash bin labels to sort recyclables in Mexico. So obviously it's in Spanish, and you can see there organic and inorganic. As we produce and consume more items, the space to put these items once we are done with them decreases. The amount of scarce disposal items is becoming an increasingly scarce resource. Chapter 9 discusses more solutions to this mounting waste problem. So yes, we buy lots of stuff, but that means we have a lot more to throw away. And the question is where to put all the stuff. Landfills are filling up while the amount of waste continues to grow. Okay. Slide 5, we have 2 big ideas here. The first is that our production capability is unsustainable. We burn fossil fuels and use stocks of old growth forest and topsoil faster than those resources can replenish themselves. Even though we've begun to alter this path, how much is enough and what trade-offs must indeed be made? And how much is enough, and what about the future? And of course, we must remember that our production and consumption decisions have an impact upon future generations. Second big idea is that there is indeed value in biological diversity, not just from a species perspective, but even from a human viewpoint. For example, many of our pharma developments come indeed from the natural world. So there, even though somebody doesn't own it, there is value, value perhaps to our generation or even to future generations. Okay, slide 6. So environmental degradation, how much pollution is too much? And this is a huge question. Should we opt for zero tolerance for pollution, as in zero pollution? The answer is no, because that would mean extinction of animals, including humans. We all pollute. We all live and we all pollute. We all expel waste matter into the atmosphere. The real question is, how much pollution are we indeed willing to tolerate? Okay. Now we're on to slide 7. Slide 7. Alternative energy sources. Why are they not here? So, why are we not farther along the alternate energy path? Unfortunately, there are many reasons. There are politics, NIMBYism, not in my backyard. So putting, let's say, wind turbines in an area means that it has to be in somebody's eyesight. And certainly here on Oahu, we have issues with that. We have wind turbines in Kahuku, but there are many people who say, oh, those wind turbines, they are unsightly. Or those wind turbines, what about the birds that may go into the wind turbines? Now, of course, there are also high startup costs for alternative energy sources, wind turbines, solar, um, geothermal, wave energy, and all that. There's imperfect information and the profit maximizing strategy of competing firms. But as these alternative energy sources become more scalable or more in number, the average cost does tend to go down. And if you remember from microeconomics, that is called economies of scale. Okay, on we go to slide 8. In slide 8, we have 3 more big ideas. And the first idea goes back to Thomas Malthus and his dismal conclusion about that population growth would always outpace the food supply. Technology has postponed that day of reckoning, but perhaps not forever. And when that day comes, society will have to make choices. We economists do have some comment on these issues, which can be quite insightful. And we'll explore some of these big ideas, some of these strategies and comment that we have further on in the course. Our second idea is natural resource management. How should I harvest my elms or whatever it is I am producing as a farmer? This idea is all about the optimal harvest of natural resources that are not privately held. The problem here is called the tragedy of the commons. The idea that we have a common resource, and since nobody owns it, there is an incentive to be the first one to get to harvest it. And as the first one gets to harvest it, everybody else is racing to harvest that resource. That means a depletion of the resource. We economists do have some strategies in this regard. Our final idea is environmental ethics. What can we do? What must we do? And what should we do? And this final idea is much more philosophical and not so easily measured. Should we morally care about the environment in terms of recycling, elimination of species, etc.? What trade-offs are essential so that we humans can opt for happiness and satisfaction? And my goodness, what the heck does it mean to be happy anyways? Finally, slide 9. Conclusions. And we have a nice picture of Mauna Kea, just as in the book. And this picture shows an iconic view of Mauna Kea with its observatories. Mauna Kea has value to Hawaiians, but it also is valuable to astronomers. It's one of the 2 spots that have the clearest air in the world. I think the other spot is in Chile. So economics is not just about money. It is a lens to evaluate trade-offs that are all around us. And nowhere are these trade-offs more apparent than when one considers the environment and material well-being. Of course, there's a trade-off between attaining one and obtaining the other. There are many views on where we should go from here in terms of environmental policy. Who is right? Economists can help us make informed decisions about this. As we continue in this study and in this book, you will discover several unique answers to these questions posed in this first chapter. Some of these answers may pose yet new questions, but do not be afraid of the process. The ultimate goal is to improve our overall quality of life. And I welcome you to the study of environmental economics. I will be posting these narrated slides in the Laulima site.